A study of former NHL players suggests enforcers who spend a lot of time fighting on the ice live significantly shorter lives than their peers. Researchers at Columbia University found enforcers died on average a decade younger than comparable peers who were drafted at the same rank, were of similar height and weight, and played the same position. They also died more frequently of overdoses and suicide. The research involved analysis of more than 6,000 players from 1967 to last spring. And for more on this study, we're joined by Dr. Charles A. Popkin, an associate professor of orthopedic surgery at Columbia University and one of the researchers involved in that study. He's also team physician for USA Hockey. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
It seems like a study like this should raise a lot of alarm bells in the hockey world. Do you feel there's enough urgency when it comes to player safety?
I think this study highlights that maybe more needs to be done. I mean, I've been a hockey physician now for 6 years. I love the game, and we want to try to make it as safe as possible within reason. And I found it a little odd that no one's really looked at the long-term consequences of a career fighting, and that was the real purpose of this paper.
So if you can walk us through some of the research here, some of the findings, and what appear to be contributing factors in some of these deaths, particularly of these enforcers after their career in the NHL.
Sure. So we compared two separate groups of enforcers. First group needed to have more than 50 fights in the NHL, so that was 331 players. And then a second group, because we wanted to capture those that were still fighters but maybe didn't last as long. And so they needed to have more than 3 penalty minutes a game, and that was 181 different enforcers for that one. And then we compared them to similar players that were born in the same year, that had the same height, weight, and years played in the NHL. And then the findings, I thought, were quite shocking in that the enforcer groups, both for the greater than 50 fights and 3 penalty minutes a game, died on average 10 years sooner than their peers.
Now, we've seen over the years and a decade or so now that these enforcers, this position of enforcer or so-called goons at the time, is becoming less and less over the years. What are you hoping could come from this research, either at the top level in the NHL or specifically other leagues, either a step below the pros and even on down to younger players looking for their shot?
Yeah, I think that the NHL should look closely at making fighting a game misconduct penalty. I think the severity of injury is there. I think 10 years is a pretty big deal. It should at least force the discussion. But I mean, I think to the NHL's credit, I mean, look, back in the mid 80s, there was on average of 1.2 to 1.3 fights a game in the NHL, and now it's down to less than 1 in every 5, less than 0.2. And that's because of rule changes like the instigator rule, which was very successful. And then also, you know, after the lockout, there was an emphasis on speed and talent and play creation. And that sort of eliminated a bit of the role of the enforcer as well. So the NHL is to be applauded on those steps.
Yeah, as you say, to be fair, there has been a shift in the culture, to say the least. Dr. Charles A. Popkin, thanks so much for your time and research. Appreciate it.